Hello everyone, my name is Alex Berg, driver of the number 08 Ligier JSF4 in the F4 US Championship for Doran Motorsports Group. Today I'll be taking you around a lap of the famous Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta in Brazelton, Georgia, in none other than the Tatis Formula Renault 2.0, a car very similar to the cars used at Allenberg Racing Schools. I find that the MySim is not only the most realistic simulator I've ever driven, it's number one in terms of everyday use, reliability, practicality, and mobility. If you want to learn more about MySim, you can visit my website, alexbergracing.com, and you'll find a link to their website, mysim.ca. To anyone wanting to get into the sim racing scene, I highly recommend to get a MySim. They're the best in the business. Without further ado, I'm going to play a lap at speed. This lap is a 119.3, and after that, I'll go into further detail corner by corner of how I completed a 119.3. Enjoy. So let's look at that lap corner by corner. Starting off with none other than the fast uphill of turn 1. Where I like to brake is up in between these two grass patches on the left hand side. You're going to see a big concrete patch. I like to brake right in the center of it for a very short but a very hard amount of time. The reason I like to do this is to get a lot of weight onto the front end of the car so I can grip up and turn before the compression starts. It may be hard to tell on the sim or even in real life, but turn 1 has a downhill entry, and it's not until you get to the apex is where the compression starts and the track starts to float uphill. As you could probably hear in the lap at speed, I was holding maintenance throttle all the way up into turn 1, but I made sure to have my car pointed at the apex. A misconception of Road Atlanta is to not use all of the road on the track because it gets quite dusty on the outside. I tend to disagree, especially in cars with high downforce. As long as you're on the right driving line, the car should just push out wide. I do not recommend using any of the curbs here, especially not the one on the left-hand side, as it not only lifts the car up the ground, but as you can see, we're probably doing over 100 miles an hour if you're taking right through here, and you don't want to be upsetting the car at 100 miles an hour. Moving on to turn 2, I'd say turn 2 is one of the hardest corners on the track. Turn 3, excuse me. Turn 2 is this left-hand kink right here. And turn 2 isn't much of a corner as it is a setup for turn 3. What I like to do is aim the front of my car to these lone trees over here and try to get as squared up as possible on the left hand side, my left side tires, so I can maximize my entry for turn 3. Now the reason I like to get over to the left hand side and straighten out my steering wheel as much as possible so that I can use all of the brakes as much as I can. Obviously, if you have wheel in the brakes and try to apply them at 100%, you're going to lock up whichever wheel is to the inside of where you're steering. Now, right here, the track is very curved, but my steering is straight, so I'm able to brake as late as possible and slow down the car without any sort of lockups. Now obviously in a race condition you can use that curb on the right hand side. I like to avoid it in the racing school as it only upsets the car and only causes a lot more risk to new drivers. But once you get experience, you will be able to use that curb a little bit more and more. I would say use where the blue and white is. Don't use that extra apex curbing, as that can be very rough on the cars. I like to use the end of this curbing as a turn-in point. As you can see, I've already started my turn a little bit before that curb, but I apply it gradually throughout the corner. This corner doesn't take a lot of steering wheel input, especially because you're cresting in the brake zone. The crest of the hill is in the brake zone, so the car is going to want to step out you massively, especially because it's blind as well. Slowly apply the throttle at the apex, but make sure that you're going to have enough room to exit. A big thing in this corner is, since it's blind and since you're going to be looking at it through the cockpit, it's very hard to see the exit of the corner. But when you know you've taken it right, when you've hit the apex and you're on your marks and the car feels completely under you, it is one of the best feelings driving turn 3 at Road Atlanta correct. And it's a very hard thing to do, but once you get it, it will seem easy. Now coming into turn 4, turn 4 again isn't as much of a setup as it is turn 4 isn't as much of a corner as it is a setup for the S's. The S's don't have a corner number, but the S's comprise of this right-hander and this left-hand bend that lead up to the famous turn 5. What I like to do is hold my line completely tight after exiting turn 3, have my wheels flush with the left side of the track, and just keep my car over here, and use this left-hand entry curb as a reference point for the first S. Obviously, in the car, it's going to be very blind, and you're going downhill. It is the fastest part on the track. Obviously, it's also going to be flat out. So just make sure to stay off all these curbs here, as they can really upset the car, especially in these downhill and uphill periods. Now, this second S, I line the left side of my cars up with this triangle over here where the curb ends. The reason I do that is because we're coming into turn 5, a corner that, in my opinion, is very similar to turn 3. Except flip the other way. What I like to do, again, is line the right side of my tires up with the curb and be as perpendicular or parallel as I can, so I open up the corner entry. Obviously, you don't want to use any of that curb, as it'll decrease the amount of brakes that you'll be able to use, and as well as upset the car. Turn 5 is a corner of patience. You want to get off the brakes slowly, pop off the brakes, and get the car turned in, but you don't want to use any of the exit curb any more than I just used right there. On the entry, it's okay to use a little bit in the apex, it is okay to use a little bit of the curb, but not on exit. In race conditions, obviously, it is, but it only upsets the car, especially in low-profile Formula cars. So once again, try to have a straight steering wheel while braking, pop off the brakes, and slowly apply the throttle as you're going through the corner. Now coming up to turn 6, this is one of the fastest corners for how long it is on the track. People think that's a corner that you want to slow down, but something very interesting that a very good instructor once taught me is that if you look at turn 6, there's a lot more that you can gain on entry than there is on exit, because almost immediately after the exit, you're going to apply the brakes for the turn 7, which leads onto the longest straightaway on the track. So the theory in turn 6 is different from most corners in terms of you will want to gain more time on the brakes on entry by braking as late as possible rather than getting a good exit, because getting a good exit will benefit you for, let's say, 20 feet until the next brake zone of the next corner. So you'll gain a lot more time on entry than you will on exit. The strategy in turn 6 is to carry as much speed as possible. That's why you hear me slowly applying the throttle much later than I would in any traditional corner that leads onto a longer straightaway. It's also a very smooth throttle application, and you just want to be getting to full throttle just before you're going to apply the brakes for turn 7. Turn 7. In my opinion, this is my least favorite corner on the track because of how slow it is, and more importantly, how tough it is and how easy it is to get it wrong. This corner is the most important corner on the track because it leads on to the longest straightaway, so it's very crucial that you get this corner right to reduce your time. Like most corners at Road Atlanta, it's a blind corner, blind entry, and as well as a straight wheel braking zone. You're not going to want to brake as hard as you can, as you still will want to carry momentum even though it is the slowest corner on the track. but also slowly release your brakes as you enter the corner. Obviously, trail braking is going to help you massively. More importantly, getting the car turned straight and being able to apply as much throttle before the apex as you can without running off the road, because that starts your straightaway 20 feet earlier, perhaps, and your top speed will be a lot faster at the end of the straightaway. Now, these bends, I guess, are considered turn 8 and turn 9. They're not too much of corners, but I guess they had to add 2 extra corners to Road Atlanta. So coming into turn 10, my favorite combination on the track, besides turn 1, brake at the 100 marker. Well, obviously your first time buyer, you're going to want to brake over at the 200 marker, which is going to be right around here. And work your way up to braking later, but something crucial in this corner is the fact that you want to give up a lot of your time on the entry of the corner to keep your car over on the left hand side, to be able to set up and start your straightaway a lot earlier for turn 10B, the right hander. Now, something I'd like to point out is in the car, obviously this is blind like most corners, and you can't really see the where your car is on the right hand side. So I would say, coming off of turn 10A, hold it to the left a little bit and then really use a lot of steering wheel input, as long as you're going slow enough to the point where you can use wheel input at full throttle. And you'll find that there's a lot more road on the right hand side than most drivers think. But rewinding back to turn 10A, it's a very simple corner. That's also why I'm a big fan of it. You're going to want to brake early, obviously, and trail off the brakes. Trail braking is very important in this corner as it's a sharp 90-degree bend, but you could still carry a lot of speed in it. I like to get on throttle and be full throttle committed before I get to the apex of turn 10B, as I am right now, as it just starts my straightaway a lot shorter, a lot longer before. So here, I wouldn't recommend using any curb here, as it really shakes up the car. It's more of a cheese grater than a curb in my opinion, but so stay off of that curb. It'll upset the car and send you in a spin, believe it or not. Coming over turn 11, if you notice on the top of your screen, there's going to be a yellow, blue, and white boxes. Now, I'm not sure what these boxes are put in for, but I use them as references, and so do many other drivers. I like to have my car directly underneath that, and once you drive a couple laps at Road Atlanta, you won't even need to use that as references. It'll just be muscle memory. So try to align your car with the center of that and aim in the cockpit for this corner right here where my mouse is, at the end of the tunnel. That'll set you up perfectly for your apex of turn 11, and send you into the big fast downhill of turn 12. Now, the good thing about Road Atlanta is there's a lot of reference points, and most of them are the same, which is the end of the entry curb. That's exactly where I turn in. Obviously, this is a very windy part of the track, so I'm going to have wheel input. But this is where I commit on the left-hand side to turning in. This is a flat-out corner, the fastest on the track apart from the S's, and it's definitely the most dangerous corner on the track, as you go from all this open space to a very narrow front straightaway with walls on both sides of the track. So you're going to want to turn in right as you pass the left-hand side entry curb and hold it flat. Do not use any of these apex curbing. That's something I highly stress. It'll upset the car at over 120 miles an hour, and that's not something that you want to be fighting when you have walls on both sides of your lap track. So that was a lap on the iRacing Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. I hope you all enjoyed. Please check out my website, alexbergracing.com, and don't forget to leave a like on this video, and follow Allenberg Racing Schools on YouTube. As always, stay safe, stay fast, and be a racer.